Getting beat up by 9 guys at Syracuse, to me, there's not a whole lot of shame.
Welcome to the Heel to the Face podcast.
And this right here,
with your hosts, Jarod Wicks, Brandon Icebreaker Clements, and Paul Boy Green Esden.
It doesn't matter what your name is. And that's the bottom line. You're Stone Cold
I have received an email.
Don't forget to email the show at heeltotheface@hotmail.com.
Best there is, the best there was, or the best there ever will be.
Brett screwed Brett because it's what's best for business.
To be the man, you gotta beat the man. The champ is here. Oh yeah, New Day Rock. And if you're not down with that, we got 2 more for ya.
Tweet us using the handle at Heel to the Face.
Woo! Let's get ready to suck it!
The bell is rung, so let's step in the ring with your hosts, Paul, Brandon, and Jarod.
I might as well tag me up with my buddy from Syracuse.
Live from the Galaxy Communications studio in downtown Syracuse, New York. This is the Heel to the Face podcast for the first full week of June 2017. As I am your host, Jarod, just Jarod Wicks. You can find me on Twitter at Jarod Wicks. I'm joined as always with Brandon the Icebreaker Clements at Icebreaker21, and via the phone lines, Paul Boy Green Esden. You can find him on Twitter at BoyGreen25. But most importantly, if you're going to follow anything on Twitter, follow the program at Heel to the Face. As we're with you for yet another week of exciting action in the world of sports entertainment. Extreme Rules this past Sunday night. Raw and SmackDown this past week. And let me tell you, I have absorbed, and Paul Boy Green Esden as well, a lot of WWE wrestling this week. Normally, Raw and SmackDown, I flip the channels this week from start to finish, including dark matches before the shows, dark matches after the shows, all 205 live. So we are ready to go and talk about some WWE. But before we get to that, we are going to talk about Extreme Rules from this past Sunday. We start with the kickoff show. Now, I didn't know if I missed it or not, but I found out that I indeed did not miss it. Goldust, R-Truth, did not leave the kickoff show as we were talking about last week.
Yeah, it was scrapped. They it was a last-minute thing. They scrapped the match. Yeah, I tuned in a little bit late myself, and I'm like, oh, they didn't do it. So I was looking after the Extreme Rules, and I did see that it was a last-minute scrap. So I'm not sure.
And for good measure,
I think they should build it anyways. I mean, it was too quick. I think they got to let this. They got to let the seed grow a little bit. So I think good move on WWE's part. I think we'll see it. I think they're going to build it, cultivate it the next couple weeks. And get to the next pay-per-view. Maybe that's when the time to let it rock and roll.
So I know Paul is a big Miz fan like myself. So I will start with you, Paul. The Miz beating Dean Ambrose, becoming your new Intercontinental Champion. Was that probably one of the more highlighted moments for Extreme Rules for you?
Absolutely. I'm a huge Miz fan. I think he's electric on the mic. I think that the Miz with his 7th Intercontinental Championship reign, and we got to witness, the comeback International Championship tour on Monday night. I mean, it's fantastic. I like Dean Ambrose. I like the Dean Ambrose thing. I will retract what I said. When this first was going to be another rivalry again, I thought that, it could be dry. I don't know where else they could go with it. But Jarod, you defended it, saying that The Miz is a new guy now coming back from that John Cena, Nikki Bella WrestleMania, and I couldn't agree with you more. I love the angles of it. Monday night was fantastic, but sticking with Extreme Rules, I couldn't be happier with Miz as the champion and the way it played out.
Now, Brandon, your opinion on The Miz being the champion. Do you like where this is going? In fact, let's skip a little maybe Monday Night Raw on what you saw with Maurice. Do you like this whole angle? Do you want to see him continue feuding with Dean Ambrose, or would you like to see maybe another Intercontinental contender now coming after Miz?
When Dean Ambrose lost the title at Extreme Rules, at first I was not too happy about it, I will be completely honest. But the way they played it out on Monday Night Raw, which we'll get into depth more later, I do think it was played out. I'm okay with this rivalry. The thing that I want to see, I always look at the future of it. Now, once this whole Miz and Dean Ambrose thing, whenever it's done playing out, I have a feeling we're going to see a Dean Ambrose heel turn. I don't know if it's just me, but my gut feeling, the way things are going, I feel like we're going to see a Dean Ambrose heel turn before you know it. Maybe I'm getting the cart before the horse on it, but where do you guys go on that? I do like to see this drawn out a little bit. But I think at the end of the tunnel, I think
Do you
Dean
think
Ambrose,
like a Maurice teaming up with Dean Ambrose here?
No, I mean I think.
Wow. Oh,
No,
okay.
I think I don't know.
I'm just throwing that out there from what we saw with Maurice, and you saying a
Sure.
turn. So I'm trying
I
to put
mean-
the current storyline together.
I mean, it was. I will say Maurice. The whole thing with Maurice getting pissed off at Miz. That was pretty good. I mean, I know you guys were there live, so I'm sure the crowd pop was pretty good during that time. But I mean, I don't see it as a heel. I don't see Dean as a heel in this scenario. I think it's a future heel, maybe against one of his old Shield brothers. That's where I'm thinking.
Well, that makes 100% sense, Brandon, because I don't know if it's indicative of what's going on with his current situation and his current storyline, but I think that it's inevitable that he's going to return back to that heel. The Shield was so popular. It was phenomenal. It was one of the best factions the WWE has ever seen, if we're being prisoner of the moment. I think for sure that Dean is going to flip back. When is that going to happen? I don't know. It would be great to see that Maurice twist that Jarod was just talking about, but I don't know if that's going to come to fruition. I think that's an interesting little nugget if that ever is possible to happen, but I really think that Dean is due inevitably. But The Miz is going to be the champion for a long time, I think.
Yeah, I agree with you. I totally think he's going to be champion for a bit. Like I said, at first I wasn't on board, but I mean, I think the creative did a good job on Monday night to really sell me on it. So I'm good with a Miz title run. I'm curious to see what this whole thing with Maurice is going to play out and see, what other tricks Dean has up his sleeve, stuff like that. I mean, not to beat the whole Dean Ambrose to heel, turn eventually. And, that's my projection. As a fan of the Shield, I mean, having those three guys on the same show, wouldn't you want the Shield back together, even if it's for a one-off? I mean, No, you don't think so?
I like I like Dean switching heel. I think they can all stand on their own, and I feel like we kind of realized that in the middle of the Shield run that, hey, maybe these guys don't need each other, and they can kind of survive on their own, and they don't need the tag team-esque faction thing right now. Maybe a throwback like Evolution got the throwback where they brought Batista back for a little while. Maybe that's inevitably going to happen.
Maybe like a one-off or something.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, maybe at a future pay-per-view, right? It's kind of like what they did with Charlotte Flair and the whole SmackDown thing when they did the 3-on-3 tag match at Extreme Rules, or it was Payback, or one of these ones that just happened where they had, kind of this competing. I'm pretty sure it was at Extreme Rules, but maybe my brain's not working. But when they just took them off the main action, instead of just having the single women's championship match, instead they did the 3-for-3. Maybe one time we could have that if we have a lot going on, because this is a very deep WWE roster. But outside of that, I just don't see that happening.
Let's move on right now to the steel cage match. Another new champion crowned. Cesaro and Sheamus beating the Hardy Boys. Now, are you a fan of Sheamus and Cesaro being your new Raw tag team champions?
I think Paul is. I think Paul might be on that. I was the one, and I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I did call a Hardy's run to SummerSlam. That's where I was thinking. I figured they'd have a little bit more of a run. It was kind of an awkward match. I didn't know when a steel cage match where when Jeff Hardy gets out of the cage and then comes back and then he puts himself back in the ring. I thought the whole I don't think the steel cage match was as good as I was anticipating. Maybe I had higher expectations for it. It was just a really awkward match. I don't know. That's just me. But what was the point of Jeff Hardy going out of the cage if he's coming back in and you still have to have both members out at the same time? I always thought if he's out of the cage, he's done. You can't go back into the ring. That's why
I don't think I ever felt that. In fact, I felt the whole time that Jeff Hardy made sense to be the first one out of the cage because he seems. I don't want to say he's the stronger one, but it kind of sets up for a little bit better of the storyline in the sense of I thought maybe we're going to see a Jeff Hardy. Not a heel turn, but maybe an accidental. That's you go back in because you're trying to help, but you accidentally cost your team the match.
Sure, yeah,
sort of like planting the seeds. I got you.
Yeah. It didn't exactly go that way. It was just the fact that Sheamus and Cesaro cleanly won. They just beat him to the punch there, getting out of the cage quicker. So the Hardy Boys, there wasn't a breakup there, any sort of confusion or any sort of awkwardness between them. They just beat them. But I felt that I've seen that before. One gets out of the cage and kind of leaves the other one being like 2-on-1 man, and that actually gives the team that doesn't have anybody out of the cage an advantage because yes, while one is out of the cage, they though can then 2-on-1 against that to me is not typical of a cage match, but it's definitely something I've seen a few times before. And as for Cesaro and Sheamus being the tag team champions, I think they're hot right now, and I think, the Hardy Boys coming into WWE took a little bit of their steam away that they had going into WrestleMania and that ladder match. But, I mean, I can't really see any other tag teams against them going, against the Hardy Boys. That's the feud right now, and I don't see another tag team championship match coming up anytime soon with another tag team.
Let me ask you this: do you guys see a long run with Sheamus and Cesaro as champions? I mean, Paul, where do you think? Where do you go on this first?
Yeah, I mean, I think the feud overall. I think clearly, I was happy with the decision, Brandon. You were right. I was happy that Cesaro and Sheamus was able to win this championship because I think that it's not that the nostalgia run was over necessarily for the Hardy Boys. I think that this was necessary for this feud to continue because you can't keep facing the Hardy Boys over and over again and losing and expecting it, to remain interesting. So for me, I really think that Cesaro and Sheamus are going to have a little bit of a run here. I think there may be some back and forth. I don't see some swashbuckling going on with the championships. I don't think that it's to keep switching back and forth. I think now Cesaro and Sheamus could have this run through SummerSlam unless another tag team jumps through at SummerSlam. So for me, that's kind of how I have the pulse of it going right now. But I feel like it was time for the Hardy Boys to lose it. I think this is a unique and interesting way for them to lose it.
I don't see this, to me, long term. I know we talk about it a lot on the show. Do you see them taking the titles long term? I don't really see anybody outside of Brock Lesnar ever taking a title long term, but I see them being involved with the titles long term. I think that's more of a 2017 type lingo to talk. This isn't 1992 Hulk Hogan taking it for half the decade. This, so what I'm trying to say is exactly what I just said. Cesaro and Sheamus, I see them being involved in the tag team titles. I see the Hardy Boys being involved in tag team titles, and I feel you have to win it, like Paul was just saying every so often, to stay relevant. Kind of to have like maybe a Nintendo, Sega Genesis reference. When you were racing on those games and you were playing maybe a NASCAR game or any sort of racing game, you had to hit the checkpoints in order to keep racing. If you didn't hit the checkpoints, you didn't get to keep racing. Yeah. So the checkpoints were just to keep the race going. Title changes to me are to keep the race going. When you have a feud going on, the title changes to me are just so that you have somebody have a reason to then ask for the next match. You have the Hardy Boys lose just so that they have a legit reason to ask for a rematch. You have the other team win, so the ball keeps rolling. If you have, for example, what we're seeing right now with Neville beating Austin Aries, he beat him 3 times in a row. Austin Aries and the Neville feud, I think, finished and over. Done.
You think so?
It's got to be over. I mean, how many more times are you going to have Austin Aries? I mean, these aren't dirty wins. This isn't over a month span. This is 4 months of Neville getting clean wins over Austin Aries. And then there's
why is Austin Aries not getting the titles? What I'm trying to figure out.
Why hand him the title? I like this King of the Cruiserweights thing. He's been dominating the division, and then me and Jarod, I think we both collectively assume that he wasn't going to lose it to TJP at a Cruiserweight 205 Live in Rochester.
No, not a chance.
But I feel like this King of the Cruiserweights thing, I think, to what Jarod just said, repeating what I just said in terms of, switching up the championships every once in a while, I think that keeps the race going, hitting the checkpoints, as Jarod said. But I think sometimes when you have a dominant champion, there's nothing wrong with that because he's kind of cleaned out. And right now, until, again, an injection of a new person into the ring or into the division, I don't see Neville losing it, in the near future because clearly right now no one is on the Neville level.
So you're saying he'll be the champion defending his title at SummerSlam.
That's exactly what I'm saying. Yes.
Okay.
Now, I don't think it's up there in the level of Jinder Mahal becoming the number 1 contender for the WWE Championship a few months back, but I kind of made a reference while watching Extreme Rules, and Paul Boy Green might remember that I said if Samoa Joe wins this match, it's going to, to me, be kind of like a Jinder Mahal in that that I'm going to be surprised. I'm not going to be, the guy that said the Just Say Yes shirt in the front row at WrestleMania with that look on his face. It became an all-time meme. I'm not going to be that one guy with my hands holding in the air like I'm in utter shock, like we had a 40-point lead in a legitimate sporting event that I'm a fan of and we just lost it. No, obviously not. But I was dearly surprised that Samoa Joe came out the victor. And I'll tell you what, leading on, obviously, to Monday Night Raw, I want to say very happy, but I'm kind of excited to see what is in store between Samoa Joe and Brock Lesnar.